I'd like to tell you about the strangest secret in the world.
You go inside the cage. Cage goes in the water. You go in the water. Shark's in the water. Our shark.
They don't come out in so many words and say that they want to take us over. They're too clever for that. But that's what they want. They want to take over us, individual me. And if we let them seep in here from down yonder on Cross River, if we let these do-gooders, these bleeding hearts, propagate their insidious doctrine of involvement among us, then, my dear friend, we's in trouble. Deep, deep trouble.
You're listening to PT Pop on A Mind Revolution, leading you out of the rabbit hole, one grain of truth at a time. Rabbit hole.
Hey there, everybody. It's PT Pop here in A Mind Revolution. And today, I'm talking to Cleveland area artist Gregory Alan. And we're going to be talking about his work and his inspirations and where he got all of his training and things like that. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for downloading me. And thanks for coming today, Greg. And as I said before, if I call you Jeff, I apologize.
It's all right. I have no problem with that.
Oh, okay. My weird brain, for some reason, I confuse things. I don't know if you call that just addle-brained or.
I can relate.
Yeah, maybe it's part of the being. I forgot to tell you, we've got a guest here tonight. We've got George Harrison. You're a Beatles fan, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I had this friend of mine in high school, and his mother had this George Harrison doll because she's from that era of Beatles fanatic, and she had this doll. She gave it to her son, who was my friend, and I drove him crazy. I said, "You got to give me this doll." And I thought, he finally gave it to me, and I found out years later that it wasn't worth anything because it doesn't have the plastic guitar that comes with it.
Oh, okay.
With a guitar, it's worth like $300, but without it, it's probably worth like $10 or something. But I keep them around to do photo shoots to focus on to give examples of photo shoots, things like that. So
I love it.
Well, thanks for coming today. Thanks for coming all the way down here to my studio. I really appreciate it. It's going to be a lot of fun talking to you. I discovered you on another podcast called the Schwill podcast.
Cleveland Schwill, yeah.
A couple of guys here in Cleveland doing the same thing I'm doing. And I had not heard of your artwork or any of your work, and I'll go over to your website here. And your work just really caught my eye. And if you go to GregoryAlanArt.com, you can see a lot of his work here.
ALAN.
Yeah, it's Gregory, ALAN art.com. And I just was very taken by your work from the moment I saw it. As we were talking off microphone earlier, just the color composition and the composition, the color theory, the use of lines to create what I perceive as to be movement in some of your work.
Yeah, it's just really important.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And I'm just scrolling through here on some of your work. And what I was going to do is just going to go through here and just ask you a couple of questions. Now, where did you start off? Where did you get your first idea you wanted to be an artist?
As a kid, I started to doodle. I just doodle over and over and over again. It seems like I have a lot of art in my ancestors. I guess the mural in the Terminal Tower was done by my Polish relatives. So I had this love of doodling. My father noticed it. He was also somewhat of an artist. And he would bring home forms from where he worked, and so I could draw on the backs. I would just do that constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, when I went to school and I would start to draw, people would go, "Oh, wow, that's great." I was better than anybody. I was always the guy, the artist. Greg the artist was what they called me over the years.
Yeah.
Even into high school. And so I realized that that's what I really wanted to do, was to be an artist. And so I got a job in a gas station. Remember those days when you had to have somebody else fill your car up?
Oh, yeah. They'd run out and fill your tank.
Yeah.
For you. Yeah.
I was one of those guys. That was before, you had to have a trained technician, that pimply-faced 18-year-old,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I worked at this place, Sitco in Parma,
Oh yeah,
and
Parma.
yeah, State Road in Brookdale. I still remember it.
Oh, nice.
I scraped up enough money to apply to Cooper School of Art in Cleveland, which is now defunct. I went in there in 1974. They accepted me. I showed them my portfolio. They liked it well enough to allow me in. So there began the journey.
Oh, that's awesome. And do you have anybody that's like your inspiration? You know, are you a big Dali fan, or you know, a lot of your work is surrealistic to me or very impressionistic. So I didn't know if you're, who was the artist I asked you about online? The guy that did the Beatles.
Oh, Peter Max. Peter Max.
Yeah. It seems like you have a lot of Peter Max influence.
That was really interesting you said that, because I never really thought about that. But in some of my pieces, there is that. I hadn't really noticed that until you brought it up. My biggest influence, I was 17 years old. I was in arts class at Mid Park. We had a assignment where we had to either pick an artist or pick one from a list, research that artist, do a report on that artist, and then do a piece that was similar to what that artist did. So for whatever reason, I either picked or was given Van Gogh.
Oh, wow.
Van Gogh. I found out later, so I pronounced that.
Yeah.
And whoa, I had no idea about this man. I didn't realize what a sensitive soul he really was. He only sold 1 or 2 paintings in his lifetime. And the more I studied him, the more I was influenced, not necessarily by his art yet, but by the type of person he was. Extremely brilliant and unknown, totally unknown. I bet there are a lot of people out there that can relate to that today.
Yeah.
And so I went to the Cleveland Museum of Art. And there just so happened to be a Van Gogh on display. This was before they didn't allow you anywhere near it. I was able to get like to within 6 inches of it, and I could practically feel the passion in the paint, the way he just globbed it on, but in this kind of controlled frenzy.
Yeah.
And that changed me. And that's what I do to this very day, even with markers, is to try to control that passion the same way that he did. He blazed so many paths, and nobody knew about him. So that moment when I was within 6 inches of that, I practically smell it, was when I didn't realize it then. A 17-year-old doesn't know shit from Shinola pretty much. But I knew, looking back, that that was the turning point for me in terms of my style.
So would you say Van Gogh is your primary influence?
Yeah.
Okay.
Easily. Just not only in his personality, he was an alcoholic, and I think he suffered from DTs a lot. And
okay. I knew he had some issues mentally, but I didn't realize he was an alcoholic.
Yeah. So I think that had a lot to do with it. They didn't have any real way to approach alcoholism back then. So they sent him to the sanatorium, and he probably schizophrenic, probably this, probably, it doesn't really matter. What it matters is, of course, is how he introduced a whole different world. He took Impressionism to a new level that no one has since, before or after, been able to really emulate.
Do you ever see like if you go to the Cleveland Museum of Art, they had a Van Gogh display here, and some of the, the little markers, the signs that tell you the story behind the painting. Do you think those are authentically realistic, or are they just somebody's impression or their interpretation of what they think he was painting about? 'Cause sometimes they're very, I don't know. As an artist myself, I'm like, it seems kind of like they make stuff up to make it fit the painting or something like that.
Oh, I totally agree with that. The art establishment defines for the rest of us what is good, and they tell us what a painting means, which is totally bullshit. You just make it up. Yeah. Everyone has their own idea of what's good. It's all subjective. These art critics get paid to tell us what's good and what's not. It's like Siskel and Ebert, thumb up, thumb down. Yeah. Who's right?
Yeah.
It's purely subjective. And if you look at it and it affects you, then that's all you need, really. So when pretentious people start to tell us, well, obviously it was from this, I don't know. It moved me.
Yeah,
That's all. That's all that really matters. I hate it. I like it. I don't. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. If it touches you, which is my goal, then that's all that really matters.
Well, I remember there was a piece by Van Gogh just recently in that display or in that exhibition where the hands in the photograph of whoever, or in the painting of whoever he was painting, were larger than anatomically should have been. And I think the display said, Van Gogh emphasized the size of the hands to emphasize that this was a working man who worked in the fields. And like, what a bunch of horseshit. I mean, maybe he just got the hands wrong. Maybe that's what he wanted to do. I mean, did he really consciously go, let's make this guy's hands because he's a farmer?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was with my wife. And what is this stuff?
All right. Who really knows? I don't personally worry too much about that, about whether or not a hand's too big, hand's too small. Because of the overall, you're not looking, like when you draw or paint a person, you're not looking for necessarily, depending on the type of artist you are, for anatomically correct.
Yeah.
What you're looking for is the shape and the feel and the emotion, and how it all works together on the plane that you're working with. So sometimes maybe he did do it wrong, but if he felt it was wrong, he would have just gessoed it over and started again.
Yeah.
So he probably wanted to emphasize the hands, or at least it was a happy accident, which I do all the time.
Yeah, that could be. And what I just brought up on screen here is what's on your shirt. Another Day in Paradise is the title of this work. And I just love this. It actually looks kind of like Alfred E. Newman on acid.
Yeah.
If for those of you who don't know who Alfred E. Newman is or was from Mad Magazine. But this is awesome.
I'm a big fan of Mad. I had a subscription for years and years.
The illustrations in that are just amazing. Man. Yeah,
that was probably another influence. I think about it.
Yeah.
Love that magazine.
Oh yeah, I subscribe to the Mad Magazine group on Facebook.
I think I'm on the same one. I'm on one.
Yeah. But this is great. What now? So do you call yourself an impressionist, or do you have a title that you call yourself? Or
my work I call psychological abstract.
Psychological abstract.
Yeah, all of them, with some exception, are an inner expression of what's going on in here and in my heart. And they sort of erupt, I guess, through me, and I start doing it, and they start to exist. And when I'm done, I look at them and said, "Oh, that's a part of me I hadn't realized, I hadn't felt before," and it speaks to me personally. So if it does speak to me, then maybe it'll speak to the viewer.
Yeah, exactly.
Like this thing is. Sometimes I worry I take myself too seriously. So this is a result of that. This resulted from frustration. I had done a piece that was a piece of shit. And, as an artist, sometimes you have to make those mistakes. You have to fail. And I failed miserably. I was really pissed and frustrated because I was on a good path and got waylaid. So I turned it over, said, fuck it. I started, I made the ears big and so it just said, that's really what it's saying. So,
and you've got an eyeball on his chin.
Yeah, you noticed that. Thank you.
And the third eye is the forehead. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, I do. I explore the idea of the third eye a lot. And in this case, it should be in the chin.
I mean, just as I said, I don't remember what I've said already, but your illustrations have such movement, and they're vibrant.
That's really key. Movement is absolutely essential. I learned that. I learned a few things in art school before I dropped out, and one of them was the importance of composition and the importance of moving the eye.
Yeah.
Painting was invented before they had television.
Oh, yeah.
And so the need for movement was essential to a successful painting or drawing.
Have you ever considered getting somebody to animate one of these and turn them into an animated character? Because I think some of these, I'm trying to find the one here on your website. You've got one that it's the magician guy.
The Magician, yeah. One of Carl Jung's archetypes. I did 12 archetypes.
Oh, that was based off Carl Jung?
Yeah. That one is called The Magician. I made him a scientist, which basically that's today's magic. If you notice, do you have it up?
No, I'm not. Is it under the Art of the Psyche?
It would be under, there's an archetypes.
Oh, the archetype website. Gallery. Okay, look at that.
And he appears to be levitating the sphere, but if you notice, there's something actually holding it up. So it's
get back to here. There it is. Oh, is there something holding? Oh, yeah, there is.
Yeah, but you don't notice it right away. So
no, you're right. I didn't see that at all.
So he's a scientist. So if he's going to levitate, he's going to manipulate the environment rather than relying on some kind of magic.
Yeah, you can just feel the radiant glow of the sphere on his face, and just the, I don't know if those are secondary or tertiary colors on his collar.
Yeah, those are everything. I just pulled markers out of my hat.
Yeah.
Just put them I do that a lot. But that one is, that was a project, which is unusual for me because I usually don't plan. But I got this idea. We talked about in art school about the archetypes and what they meant.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some talk of the 12 disciples were the archetypes and all this kind of thing. And I'd seen different representations of them, but I'd never seen something that was American contemporary representation of 12 archetypes. So I just decided to do all 12 of them. So it's one of the rare times that I pre-sketched and thought about composition and that kind of thing. So I did all 12, and I did 4 archetypes of the human personality. So
what are the archetypes? What can you explain that?
Carl Jung came up with this idea that that all human beings can be condensed to 12 types.
Okay.
When I started doing this, when I was finished and I reflected a little bit, I realized that we all have a little bit of each one in ourselves. It's just one that seems to manifest itself more in our lives. So there's I don't know if I can remember them all, but there's the innocent, the lover, the hero, the caretaker, the magician, the creator.
I got it now. I've got them all up here. You've got
the outlaw. Yeah. So they're all meant to be contemporary, and most of them are the sage. You can take a test online to see which one you are. It turns out I'm the sage, which is kind of, the everyman is one of them too. And I always felt like I was the everyman, but at the age of 68, maybe I've become more of the sage, I guess. I don't know. So, the everyman is in front of a house is very much like mine. I do some poetry with it as well.
So you painted the sage here or drew it with a beard. Is this supposed to be kind of a self-portrait since you are the sage, or?
It turned, no, it didn't, didn't start out that way, but after having finished it, and at the time I had a longer beard, so I kind of looked like him, but it was meant to have a long beard, sort of like a monk in a way, or a shaman, something like that. Becomes a sort of a painting in and of itself. It takes me hours, but I just put on meditative music and go flat out, just get lost in it and see where it takes me. Let's see, the American discourse in 21st century was the same way. It became, I realized that there was a body there, so I went with that. And so each idea followed the other. So they're all they have little Easter eggs in them. There's little shapes in there. You look close enough.
Yeah, I'm trying to find, is that one on your website?
That would not be on the website. It would be on Instagram.
Okay.
It's fairly recent. I finished that about a week ago, I think.
Yeah, the one that's kind of similar to Athena is, where did it go?
A Neon Door, which is a online lit mag. I have 3 pieces on there.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually, when they saw that one, they actually contacted me to do a similar one for a logo for them.
Yeah.
So
Now these are all commissioned. They're paying you to do this, right?
Well, Samson Sits inspired a similar one, but these are all these are not commissions. These are just self-indulgences.
Yeah.
Which I guess is what they all are.
When you look into, I guess that would be the thoughts or the hair of Samson, or it looks like it's weighing him down. He's weighted down by this heavy weight of thought or something like that.
And it references Samson from the Old Testament a little bit, the power of the hair. And I do that with Athena as well.
Yeah.
The hair being, I guess, symbolic of the mind, or the mind of the powerful.
Sure. And there's so many different little shapes in here. I mean, it almost looks like smack dab in the center. I don't think it's meant to be this, but it looks like almost a German officer's hat or something.
Could be.
But there's all kinds of, looks like little bug drinking out of a pool of water. That's what I mean. Maybe I've done too many drugs.
Oh, you and me both.
Yeah.
The 70s were fun.
But this is I just think this is fascinating to look at. And as I was saying to you before we started, like, my mom was an art snob, and she would look at somebody's work and go, ugh, what do they know? They're terrible. And I'm not quite that bad, but sometimes somebody shows me their work. I'm like, oh, that's nice. When I saw yours, I was just like, oh, this maybe just speaks to my weird brain, all the colors and the shapes and the movement.
A lot of people like this, though. A lot of people like the color idea. And there's a trend that's kind of driving me crazy right now. And it's okay in a way, but it's extremely derivative. There are a million artists out there that are splashing paint on the canvas.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of it's good. Color's good. The composition is good. But Jesus Christ, it's been done. I just can't do that.
Well, didn't Jackson Pollock make that famous?
Yeah, and everybody's been doing either. Yeah, Pollock. People do drip paintings. I don't know if you know Jean-Michel Basquiat. He was a contemporary of Warhol's. Matter of fact, Warhol sort of was his patron in a way, made him famous. Mm-hmm. Self-taught, and it's very raw, and especially for its time, very, very brave. Mm-hmm. Everybody's doing Basquiat now. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. Some of it is so cool. I love it. But I won't do anything that's derivative. I have to keep it as much to my own expression as I possibly can, even though it's impossible to not be derivative. I mean, that's what inspires us. Mm-hmm. Like Van Gogh, he's the one. And of course, different ones inspired me, but he was the basic one. So he's going to come out. But I really think the art world, if it wants to get really interesting, should, rather than trying to get what people would like or what might sell, to just find out what your real core is and feed that and let it come out.
Yeah, I think for me, I've seen the digital world has kind of ruined art in many ways.
Oh God, yeah.
Because
I hate AI.
Oh yeah.
Soulless.
Oh yeah.
No soul.
There's software now where it can take pieces of art on the internet and put it together and make another piece of art from derivative pieces, and people think that that's art. They think they've created art. But
zeros and ones.
What I've seen as a photographer is there are a lot of people that pick up their iPhone and they take a picture, and because they get 1,000 likes on Facebook, they think they're a photographer. And to me, there's picture takers and there's photographers.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
And it's very, you kind of just have to let it go. Because for years I tried to think, well, how can I make money at this? I don't make much money at this at all, but I enjoy doing it. Like, I just enjoy talking to you and having other people in and just finding out new things.
Sure.
It costs some money, but why not? It's just get your work out there. It's fun.
I'm not making any money doing this. I mean, I get some coming in, but more is going out than coming in.
Yeah.
I have to keep reminding myself it's the act of creating.
Yeah.
It's such a gas. Sometimes it almost, at the risk of sounding ridiculous, it's almost orgasmic if I get it right. I'm like, God, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you sit back and you look at it and think, oh, I did that. Wow. It's like,
yeah.
And have you ever found yourself getting frustrated when you're, see, I'm very ADD. I guess that's the cool thing to call it these days. But if I were to try to do something what you do, I would just be, I can't do it. I just, fuck it. I just put it down. And I've done that with a couple of paintings and looked atrocious.
It's very, very challenging.
Yeah.
I have to draw upon. I have a talent for patience. I think I got from my
good.
dad, and also I meditate pretty much on a daily basis.
Oh, good.
And so to do something like that is very meditative. I'll put on Robert Fripp, Music for Quiet Moments, which is very, ambient, and just go off with it and get lost in these little worlds. And then the end result is an idea. That could be, hair. Wait, hold on. We'll expand upon the Samson idea. And so the face then sort of, I saw it in my head that she is, or he, whatever you want to call, is in a state of bliss right now. It's just accepting the fact that she or he is filled with thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a funny thing because, I look at some of your work and it seems like now that I'm looking at it and you're sitting in front of me, you approach a lot of psychological topics.
Yeah.
And like in this Complacent on a Sunday afternoon.
That's sold at my last show.
Oh, I thought The Magician sold.
That the Magician, the print, I gave away a drawing for a free print.
Okay.
And that person won a drawing, one of the artists there at the gallery.
Because I wanted to buy The Magician. I don't know if you, or buy a print of it because I really love that.
Oh, good. Yeah. It's on my website.
Yeah. But this is similar character with the glasses.
Yeah.
But the composition and the movement in this too, with the sun like burst behind him kind of, and you've got it in I guess in thirds. You've got the, it's kind of like an L shape, and it just keeps your eye right. You're just drawn right to this guy's.
Yeah, that was an actual plan too. That was a planned one.
Oh, really?
It wouldn't leave my head. That image would not leave my head, and it was pre-sketched and the whole deal. The idea was that a lot of people just don't have any idea what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Just no idea. Just sitting on a park bench, just completely oblivious to what's happening. As a matter of fact, I look at it and I think it might be a nuclear weapon exploding behind him. I don't know.
Well, I think it's interesting that it's about being complacent on a Sunday afternoon, but the colors are so vibrant and active. So it kind of contradicts the title, but at the same time, your thought process behind the colors. I don't know if this was methodical. You thought this out, but the colors are just amazing.
Yeah, that was the idea. I wanted him to be dressed rather beigey, rather, no muted colors, but he's surrounded by energy and is not aware of it. I think I go into weird territory when I try to explain this stuff because I really can't explain it well. But that's the general idea I get, and I think other people might get other ideas from it.
Yeah, I've seen that. I mean, someone will look at that and have no idea.
Yeah, it's like a guy on a bench.
Yeah,
which is okay too, because it looks good just that way. So,
but then again, in this piece, you actually captured complacency. His body, his gesture is very calm and relaxed, and you captured that complacent feeling, and it's juxtaposed with these wild, bright colors, which I just, I never really analyzed it till this moment, but it's just really.
Everything's vibration.
Yeah.
And there's so much going on that we're not even aware of.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it blows my mind. I was just seeing a thing online that, when you touch your hands together, theoretically, because electrons are so spaced apart, your hands should go through each other.
Mm-hmm.
What stops them is that electrons repulse each other. So when you think that, like when I'm sitting on the ground or I'm sitting on this couch, I'm not actually sitting on it. I'm actually hovering over it by a microscopic amount because of the energy repulsed by these two electron forces. And this guy sitting on a bench has no idea of that. And all the miraculous things that he's surrounded by, he's completely oblivious to.
Is this the idea behind this work?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't realize it until it was done. As a matter of fact, you looked at it, you saw these things, and it was the same way with me. Sometimes I don't realize that the subconscious thoughts that I have just sort of, this is their only way to get out.
Yeah. I think it's just fascinating. And so when we were talking online, you said you are a Beatles fan.
Oh yeah.
And I'm a huge Beatles fan. Have the Beatles been an influence on you artistically, or are you a musician as well?
I'm not, but I'm an active listener. Where would musicians be without listeners?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so I can tell you this. That was a really great question. It made me think. When I was, I think I was 9 or something. It was, those cold mornings with the yellow light. You don't want to go to school. It's blackout still. And my brother and sister were in high school, and they bought every Beatles album.
Yeah.
And here's a 9-year-old kid feeling really angsty. School sucks. Everything. You know how we all feel.
Oh yeah.
And kids especially, we're more sensitive. And what comes on but Norwegian Wood?
Oh.
And that song is so like isolated and so cold and so detached. And for a 9-year-old to have an impression like that from a song, that's an extraordinary piece of writing there.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That Norwegian Wood is poetry. And it's when I realized that there's something besides Elvis doing other people's music.
Yeah.
There's real depth. So that appealed, I think, to the creative part of me. I didn't even realize it, the sensitive part.
Did you ever look at record album covers? Like I used to sit and look at an album called The Early Beatles, which is an American release of like Love Me Do and P.S. I Love You and those songs. And I got the album in the autumn, and we bought it in a barn sale in the middle of Geauga County. And the album cover was in the autumn. So I always associate that album cover with autumn and that music with fall. I don't know if you've ever made that correlation.
Always.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Did you have that feeling when you hear a song and you had a certain emotional feeling at that time and it's brought back to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the important things of music.
I think a lot of kids are missing that today.
Yeah.
They just have the digital MP3s.
A lot of formulaic music out there. There's a lot of good music, but you really have to look hard to find it.
Yeah, it's really hard, especially jazz. I grew up listening to a lot of jazz, like Wes Montgomery and Bill Evans, and just really good acoustic jazz musicians. And you can't find that anymore. It just sounds very antiseptic and sterile. And
something like. Well, I'm a big jazz fan too. Joe Pass. I could go. Big long list. Art Pepper.
Uh-huh.
It's out there, but when in the 80s, I listened to college radio all the time if I wanted to find interesting music, because into this day, commercial radio is just it's music. It's not most of it anyway. There's some exceptions.
Yeah.
So if you try to find somebody like Miles Davis, I'm sure there's another Miles Davis out there, but I don't know if the today's music market can even attract those types of artists anymore.
Yeah.
They can bring them out and make it viable to be a musician. It's really a tough thing these days.
I don't know if I know we're off the track here, but I don't know if anybody really spends the time with their instrument anymore to perfect it the way those guys did. Like Eric Clapton, I read he used to rehearse, or still does, 12 hours a day.
Still does.
Oh, he does.
Oh, I'm a big Robert Fripp fan. I don't know if you are. King Crimson.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
One of the finest albums ever made is In the Court of the Crimson King, but all the King Crimson catalog is extraordinary. He has his own guitar. It's called Guitar Craft, where he teaches guitar to students from a standpoint of a spiritual method, Zen, and that kind of thing, being present and being able to lift your fingers off the strings, rather than get that squeak in a chord change. All those kinds, being aware of your fingers, that kind of thing. And so, and he's another one that practices constantly, even though he's basically retired. I don't know if you find people like that out there anymore. You talked about ADD, and I think ADD might be a serious problem for us.
Well, for me, ADD, like with music, I'm a musician, and that kind of goes away. I seem to come
Oh, really?
into this, well, photography.
That makes sense.
When I'm with the guitar, I'm just like, I go into this weird Zen-like state. Same with painting and when I look through the viewfinder of a camera, it's like the whole world slows down.
Yes.
And I get like, it's all black through the viewfinder, but there's nothing else in the world. My brain shuts off all the noise, and nobody gets it. It's like
only the artist gets it. And I totally know what you're talking about. That is the thing about art and all its manifestations, that it controls it doesn't control you, I should say, but it fills you up with something else that isn't the ordinary stuff.
Yeah. And again, your website is Gregory Alan Art. That's ALAN art.com.
Gregory Alan Johnson. Oh no, Gregory Alan Art on Instagram.
Okay. And
I'm on Twitter. And what's the other one? I do some ekphrastic poetry on TikTok.
Oh, poetry too. Okay. That's excellent. And
matter of fact, I'm going to have 2 pieces. Yeah, they're down in Columbus, Pennington Arts Gallery. We're going to have a show in which they poets write poetry to the actual painting and drawing. So I took 2 down there, and I'm going to go down there this Saturday. They're going to have a reading of the poems attributed to the different paintings. So I'm kind of excited about that. Ekphrastic poetry, they call it.
So they look at your work and read a poem?
Yeah, they write a poem
based off
inspired by the work. Yeah. Matter of fact, my son dropped it off, and the poet was there, and he picked one of them right away.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
I've got a friend, my friend Rusty Harden down in Dayton. She's an artist, and she writes poetry and does illustrations for her poetry. She was in my first documentary. Hopefully she'll hear this. I think the 2 of you would talk for hours about stuff like that, because she's very moved by nature.
Yeah.
And she does paintings, just kind of these abstract woodland type pen and ink drawings that are fascinating.
She then write poetry?
Yeah, she writes poetry to them.
Oh, yeah.
I think you would call it more free form.
That's good. That's the way I do it. Free verse, yeah.
Free verse, yeah. That's very fascinating. So you get out of school. Did you work as an illustrator? I couldn't remember. I thought I saw something saying you did work as an illustrator.
Yeah, I did freelance illustration work over the years. I found out real quick that to be an artist and to make a living and raise a family is a really tough proposition.
Yeah.
So I just went into the workforce and ended up at Sam's World of Golf as a warehouse manager. Mm-hmm. And I did a lot of their logos. Mm-hmm. And I did logos for different clients, Willoughby's, like schools. And I would submit a few to illustration magazines, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't more like an avocation. It wasn't a real moneymaker for me.
Sure.
But it kept me sort of in the loop, and it kept me, like I used the markers primarily. I did the theater group brochures, that kind of thing. So but that's when I ended up with this Bristol board for those things and these markers. And I probably smoked a joint or two, I don't know. But I started to just create these things and that's the best way I can put it. And they just sort of took on a life of their own, and I became sort of tuned into that muse, as we call it. And like I said earlier, then when I retired and I could devote all my time and energy, I wasn't exhausted. I could really do it full bore, which is what I did.
That's excellent. And so these works that we're looking at on the website, these are on Bristol board?
Bristol board or illustration board. Some of these are the masonite backs of frames.
Okay.
I just whited over with some paint and did paintings right on there. Got a nice texture doing that. Mostly illustration board. I came across some foam core board, which I did a lot of my early pieces on. When I retired, and I went nuts on them with the markers, the big fat markers and things. And so as long as it's a plane, as long as it's a 2-dimensional plane, I'm going to attack it, because if it's empty, I want to fill it
Sure.
Nature hates a vacuum.
Yeah. So you've got a store here. So it looks like you sell prints, you sell T-shirts,
Mm-hmm.
you've got cell phone cases.
Yes.
And this is
hoodies.
Yeah, they can go to your hoodies and shirts.
Mm-hmm.
They can go right to your website and just buy them directly from your website.
Yes. Right.
Okay. And you take this traditional credit cards.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, that's awesome. And what kind of things do you have going on now? Do you have any art shows coming up or?
Yes. Well, I've always got my irons in the fire for different publications. I've got 3 or 4 submissions in now. I've got 2 pieces. There's a place called a gallery called 83 Gallery, which is down in Columbus, and they partnered with a bar called Brothers Drake Meadery. It's a place that makes its own meadery, or makes its own mead, I should say.
Okay.
And it's got an attached room right next to the bar that they allowed this 83 Gallery to put pieces on. So they got 3-4 walls, and it's just jam packed with the coolest art. A lot of it really experimental, a lot of it cutting edge, a lot of it like very well developed. Obviously, a great technique, a lot of skill, and all the way through and onto the other side, which is just throwing things on there, drawing little cartoons, all cool, all cutting edge. And so I've been in that show. They do it on a monthly rotating basis. I've been in that show for 4 or 5, maybe going on 6 months. I actually sold one on there. That's really a great idea. And it's a great way to bring new emerging artists out there that wouldn't ordinarily be exposed. And we got a bunch of people drinking mead, and they actually are selling these things because, you know, if they're there and they have some mead, I'll buy that. And even one of mine was sold. So Dolor, which is a kind of a weird drawing, was sold, which kind of surprised me. I just throw things out there, and things that I don't ordinarily like, I find that people like. So I really don't know what's good and bad. We talk about subjective ideas, and so that and the Pennington Arts, ekphrastic poetry, and also the art director at Ashtabula Arts Center was at the Stella show, and she loved my work so much she invited me to have a solo show there. That's going to be next year, February.
Good.
So
Good.
Always something going on. It's really exciting.
It's funny you mentioned people's interpretation or their how they see your stuff, because my mom loved one of my paintings I did of some buildings down at Ohio University, just some old houses. And I think it's an awful painting. She just loved this painting. She thought it was like the best thing I'd ever done. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, right.
And it's funny the reactions you get from different people on different pieces of work. When you're creating, do you have to find yourself forcing yourself to create? Because sometimes I go, I don't feel like doing it today. And sometimes when you do it, you create really good stuff, and sometimes you don't. But do you have to be in a certain frame of mind to do it?
I do. There are 2 schools of thought there.
Yeah.
One is that you should keep cranking it out, keep at the board or whatever you're doing, keep at it, work every day. I've found that to be a good idea, but I found it personally to be impossible. It seems like the muse takes days off, and the muse doesn't just come up to me and say, "Hey, Greg, it's time to draw now. I got a great idea. Time to paint." It sort of bubbles up quietly. I start to get this idea, and I get this little itch. So if I try to force it, it usually ends up being a failure. The only time that I can face the board, face the easel, is when I'm ready to. Otherwise, I'm faking it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing what maybe somebody else would want, or I guess I should be working. The only time that I can really do something effective is when the muse has bothered me enough that now I find myself at the board or at the easel, whatever. Now I can do this. And then I do it and I fail miserably. And I said, and that kind of drives me crazy. But then I build on that. So I say, all right, let's ruin it. And it ends up being really good as the end result. There's one right there. This is called Focus.
Is this on Instagram? I've got your Instagram.
Yes, it's on Instagram.
Is this a new one? Because I've got
Yeah, it's relatively new.
You can pull it up here on Instagram.
So I'm a big Joan Didion fan.
Okay.
Not only an extraordinary writer, but an extraordinary human being. And I decided I'm going to do a portrait of her. So I tried it on. I failed and failed and failed. She's got such a distinctive face.
Is this the yellow one with the face in the middle?
Yes.
Okay.
I failed and I failed and I failed and I was losing my mind. But I thought, I'm going to try to paint her. So I have some success with this Musou. It's called Musou Black, which is, I believe, the blackest paint in the world. You can't get any blacker, any denser black than this. I'd had some success doing that. So this is pretty good. The face was pretty good. The rest, I screwed up the hair. I screwed up the neck. I just screwed it up. And I said, all right, fuck it. I'm going to just paint over it. And I'm going to either start fresh, do something else, or try again. So I'm going around in circles. And I realized, oh, holy shit. Now, wait. I'm going to leave that face there and take it from there and see what happens. So I just started to put color in there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this one violates a lot of rules. It moves pretty well, but I think it's because of the density of the black, you cannot take your eyes off of her. And it seems as if the surrounding color and the swirling and all that, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's all about that face.
Yeah.
And the way and the expression on the face. You cannot take away at least I can't. I can't take away my eyes from the center of that. It's all there is. Mm-hmm. So that's a broken rule, and broken rules are good. So I just was fascinated. That's why ended up calling it Focus, because and she looks at me in my studio all day long. She's staring at me like, what the fuck are you going to do now?
So you think you broke a rule, but it works in this case.
It does for me. It does for me. It's all about the face. You cannot. Am I wrong about this, or can you not take your eyes off the face?
No, you're right. I was just wondering what do the colors symbolize?
The colors were an attempt to unbreak that rule by giving a countermeasure to take so that two images could fight each other, and you have that nice tension. Mm-hmm. And you're looking at the color, you're looking at the movement of the swirling, you're looking at the face, but I can't take my eye off the face. I find that really, really fascinating, just in and of itself. So
it's almost like you're looking into the eye of a hurricane.
Yes.
And you're being drawn into this hypnotic trance in this person's eyes.
And it has all kinds of potential meaning. Maybe that's the muse, for all I know. But it's just the fact that it has this quality about it.
Yeah.
I just love it. I don't know if anybody else will, or like we're talking about critics and and this is I really don't care about that anyway, but it just fascinates the hell out of me. I think that black has a lot to do with it.
You'll die, and they'll say, "Oh wow,
yeah,
what he meant by this was the darkness of his soul in a yellow hurricane of urine or something."
Yeah, right.
He was in the golden showers.
Obviously, yes, I see these guys all the time.
That's what I hated about college.
Me too.
I just warned my friend's daughter. She's going to art school down in Dayton, and I warned her. I said, "You're going to have to learn how to read into your paintings. They're going to ask you, what do these lines mean? And does this illustrate the darkness of your soul?" And she's just looking at me like I'm crazy. And I don't know if she's run into that. She's actually, her dad is an artist too. And I think she might be more talented than her dad from some of the work I've seen of hers.
Hey, that's what got me to, that's why I dropped out of art school, actually, because it was just so constricting.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you want to learn composition. You want to learn, the rules so that you know what to break. But it was so, something about it was so straight laced. I don't know how it is that Cleveland Institute, if they're a little bit open-minded. I get the feeling that they're not. This is how it's done. This is how we say it's done.
Yeah.
So therefore, this is how it's done. And
Yeah.
And maybe I was wrong in thinking that way. Maybe they were a little bit more open-minded than I thought, but I couldn't take it anymore.
This one of yours, let me go back to it here, pull this up real quick. This is the one that reminded me of Dr. Strangelove.
Oh, there's an interesting story there.
Yeah, I love this because it reminds me of Peter Sellers with those glasses on in Dr. Strangelove.
This is wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I have a big fan on Instagram. He loves my work. He's bought like 5 prints of mine.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought he calls himself Dr. Strange Golf that's his handle on Instagram.
Okay.
And I thought, I'm gonna do a special drawing for him. Just give it to him for free.
Okay.
We'll print it out and we'll send it to him.
Okay.
And it was the picture of Peter Sellers in Dr. Strangelove as this guy.
Yeah.
Couldn't stop doing the Heil Hitler.
See Kyle.
Yeah. That was another one where I had to do it over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I finally was able to do it to the point where I could feel comfortable sending it to him. And he loved it. But it ended up with at least 2 other drawings of him that I decided to just go with it. One is called Re-elect Judge Kennedy. I made him kind of a creepy lying bastard look, smiling. And another one, I forget now. It was like, wasn't it? I think it called Bill Fleischman, Champaign, Illinois, and it looked like a salesman picture. How salesmen take pictures of themselves.
Yeah.
And he looked that way, looked, phony and goofy. I made it look phony and goofy, and so then, I just decided to start painting, and that came out. And I thought, holy shit, that's Peter Sellers again.
Yeah.
That one's called Trust Me. That's every insurance salesman and politician you've ever met.
I think I don't know which. Is it black and white?
Yeah. Re-elect Judge Kennedy is black and white. I don't know if I put up, I might have put up
this one.
Bill. Yeah, there he is.
Let me pull that up here.
That was another attempt.
That's Peter Sellers.
that was a failure that I decided to go with.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, that has. I mean, see, I just look at that and it just has so much movement again and expression. He's got this goofy smile, but then again, I'm relating it to that movie.
Yeah,
and so to me, I'm drawn to it because of Peter Sellers, and I just did a podcast about him and a book about his life.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Another brilliant man.
He was a tortured soul.
Was he really?
Oh yeah, he was real messed up. But it's like most of us, artists or not. I think we're all a little bit screwy.
We are.
But you've got a new one here. Let me find this new one here. I think it's a newer one. It's this one.
Oh yeah, the one I'd given up on.
Yeah,
I gave up on that one.
You know what this reminds me of? Do you remember the science experiments in science class?
Oh.
You take the magnets and the pieces of iron on the paper and they're drawn to the magnet in this weird shape. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, yeah.
That's what that looks like to me.
Wow.
Let's see if I can blow it up on here.
I'd given up on that one because I felt that I had overdone it, but I couldn't bring myself to throw it away.
Yeah.
And I just happened to look at it the other day and it was sort of peeking out from behind a shelf. I thought, can I do anything with this? I still don't know.
Yeah, I like the magnetic. It looks like the magnetic.
Yeah, it was meant to be. There's another kind of a idea of energy, how we're surrounded by energy fields, and all that kind of thing. And it's about. I think it's about the need for love, or the need for, or the conscience. I forget what I was getting out of it at the time, but I messed it up, and I hate when I do that, when I overdo it, and I'm still looking at it thinking, I don't know if I can save that thing or not, but it is interesting. It's just in and of itself, I guess.
Yeah, no, I thought the movement, again, there's lots of movement in your work that I like.
Yeah, movement's what it's all about for me.
See, I can see a lot of your stuff. if you got an animator to bring the stuff to life. And I'm trying to think.
I never thought about that.
Think of the is it Me and My Arrow? That old cartoon from the 70s with Ringo Starr narrating it. But it's got a real sketchy quality to it. I can't remember if it's that or Where Wild Things Are. It's not an animated thing, but it's an old kid's book from the 60s.
My wife is a preschool teacher, so she has that book. Big fan. Has some great stuff there. Oh, pardon me.
Well, that's all right. You're allowed to burp here. You've got a quote now. I think this is a quote from your website. I think this is you. It says, there's something about the creative process that's hard to describe, especially if you're not the creative type. It can best be described as a sort of food for the soul.
Yeah.
And the quote goes on and on, but I thought that was significant because I've found that, when I paint, I don't consider myself a painter, but I find myself, it's more like a meditative thing for painting. I get lost in it, and I just, the whole process, I'm not worried about becoming the next Rembrandt. I just, whatever comes out. Do you find yourself ever just doing that just to heal yourself or just to get away or to escape?
All my stuff is that.
Oh, okay.
I approach every single one that way.
Oh, awesome.
With the rare exception, I shouldn't say every single one, because something like Complacent or the 12 Archetypes, those are planned out. But almost everything else that I do starts out that way, and I just follow it.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. And yes, I get lost in it. I love being in that world. Then I step back, and my mind wants to play a part and says, well, where's this going to go? And I'll stare at it, and suddenly I get this idea, and I'll realize it didn't come from my head. It came from someplace else. That's what it's all about. Then, let's try that. And it's always scary because you're taking a risk. You might screw it up. And especially when you're going in a really good direction.
Yeah.
And, God, I fucked it up. Shit. It's like a death. But yes, that's the only way I can approach my work, is to start just and put lines on there, put paint on there, and see which way it wants to go.
What do gallery owners say to you when they say, I want to bring you in and have your work on display? What is their first, are they wowed by your work? What do they say to you?
It depends upon the gallery owner. One I walked into, by the way, if you're an artist and you want to know how to break into art galleries, you have to go in there and get to know these people, have a relationship. You just can't say, can you show my stuff or anything?
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
They hate that. You establish a relationship, and I had one of my business cards I gave to her, and she said, "Oh, that's scary." But here's the kind of stuff that she's selling to people in Bratton for $10,000 to put over their couch. And that's very decorative kind of work.
Yeah.
It doesn't delve very deeply.
Yeah.
But when I visited Stella's, and I talked to the owner, one of the co-owners, Danny, and she was very open to it. I said, look at my Instagram account. That's the best representation, not necessarily my website. And she did, and she said, fine. She had a little space for rent, but she's just not going to bring anybody in off the street. You have to be something that's quality, and has some kind of quality that represents the gallery well. So it depends upon the gallery. I've had, I showed this little tiny gallery in Columbus. I showed a piece, something like that. And I said, that's not something that most people want to put over their couch. He said, I'd like to put that over my couch. So it really just depends upon the mindset. You have to go in and you have to talk to these people and get a feel for what they want, whether or not you fit in, whether or not their roster is full and they can even accommodate you, because there's a lot of artists out there. So
yeah, I really think I'm showing what's on your shirt now, Another Day in Paradise. I really think you should post this on the Mad Magazine Facebook page. And say that this is Alfred E. Newman on acid or something.
Acid, yeah.
They would probably run and buy that.
That's possible.
You may want to market to them, because it looks kind of like that to me. But is there anything you want to plug? Anything you got coming up that you want people to come out and see? Or
not really. Ashtabula Arts Center is not till next year. So, but if you happen to be out there, it's a really nice venue. It's It's got a stage, and they have productions there, and it's really, really nice area. Otherwise, I'm just plugging away, submitting to different um, online submissions, trying to get into publications, that kind of thing. So I've been doing this about a year and 2 months now. So a lot has been done, and still a lot that has to be done. So I'm trying to get traction on my website, see if I can start bringing some not only money in, which is secondary to me, but interest into my work, because I want to touch people. I keep saying that. I want to. I love it. Love it when someone buys a piece. I did this one called Crown. It was for Stella's Oddball show, which is perfect. And it sold. And it was a couple $100. I don't know who bought it. I was the only one that sold at that show. And I was so honored that someone would take the time not only to spend their money, but to put it up, want to put it up on their wall and look at it. It's really, it's more than, really much, much more than I have any reason to expect.
It's a great feeling.
I made a connection. I don't even know who this person is, but I connected with them. So I love that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I've experienced it at the art festivals where I.
Yeah, that's the coolest thing. It's what it's all about. Outside of the creative process, you're connecting with somebody else. It's like, as I've said before, I think that art is a form of love.
Oh, yeah.
So in this day and age, we need enough of that.
That's true. And it's very true. Well, Gregory, on that note, all I'm going to do is we've been talking with Gregory Alan. He's a local artist here in Cleveland, Ohio. And you can see his website at GregoryAlanArt.com. And he's just got some amazing work on there. Check it out. And Gregory, thanks so much for stopping down today, making your way down to my studio. And I wish you the best of luck. Hope we can stay in touch after this.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate you having me.
Awesome.
I do. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.